The conference room glowed under the soft, golden lights, its long, polished table reflecting the tension that filled the air. On one side sat the investors, sharp suits, calm faces, and eyes that betrayed nothing. On the other side was the man who had worked years for this moment to single. Signature away from sealing a $500 million deal. Every detail had been checked, every number confirmed, and every clause reviewed. Success was within reach, and the weight of that possibility pressed heavily on everyone in the room. Outside those glass doors, the hotel was alive with its usual bustle, maids passing by with carts, waiters carrying trays, guests whispering in hushed conversations. No one inside the room noticed the young girl lingering in the hallway. She wasn't part of the meeting, nor was she supposed to be anywhere near such high stakes. She was the maid's daughter, a quiet face that blended easily into the background. But her eyes were sharp, and what she had overheard moments earlier burned like fire in her mind. Inside, the pen hovered above the paper, waiting for the final signature. The atmosphere tightened. This wasn't just business, it was history in the making. But hidden beneath the elegant language of the contract was something dangerous, something few could recognize unless they understood the deeper context. An Arabic phrase, woven subtly into the agreement, carried a meaning that could twist the entire deal against him. It was a trap laid so carefully that even the best lawyers had missed it. The girl's heart raced. She knew the truth, and she knew the price of staying silent. But who would believe her? She was just the maid's daughter, invisible to those in power. Still, as the final moment drew closer, she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. The room froze, and in that instant, the entire land, everyone's fate tightened on the edge. The room fell into an uneasy silence, as all eyes turned toward the girl. Her voice had been soft, almost trembling, but the words carried a weight that no one could ignore. The man about to sign the deal frowned, clearly startled, while the investors exchanged confused glances. No one had expected an interruption, especially not from someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Moments earlier, she had been standing in the service corridor, listening quietly as two men whispered about a hidden clause. She didn't understand all the numbers or the business terms, but she understood enough Arabic to know something was wrong. The contract contained a phrase that looked harmless on paper, but its meaning could shift control entirely into the investor's hands for the man ready to sign. It meant losing not only money, but power, reputation, and years of effort. Her mother, the maid, had always warned her to stay invisible, to avoid drawing attention in a world where wealth and status decided everything. But this time, the girl couldn't walk away. She knew the man at the table was respected, admired by many, and had built his empire from nothing. She had seen him walking through the hotel lobby with a kind of presence that inspired confidence. To watch him fall into a trap now felt unbearable. The investors leaned back, their faces unreadable. One of them adjusted his cufflinks with deliberate calm, as though daring her to speak further. The man with the pen in his hand hesitated, sensing a storm beneath the surface. He didn't know whether to dismiss the girl or listen to her. But the timing of her words was impossible to ignore. The deal worth $500 million now hung in the balance, and the truth she carried was about to decide everything. The man lowered his pen slowly, his eyes fixed on the girl who had dared to interrupt. He could see her hands trembling, yet her gaze didn't waver. She repeated what she had heard, carefully choosing her words, explaining the hidden Arabic phrase and how it twisted the meaning of the contract. At first, the room remained still, but then the investors began to stir. One leaned forward, his smile thin, almost mocking. Another cleared his throat and dismissed her words as childish imagination. But doubt had already been planted. The man at the head of the table remembered stories of similar tricks clauses buried deep in deals, written in languages the signers barely understood. He knew the risks of international business, yet he had trusted his legal team to catch every detail. Could it really be possible that they had overlooked something so dangerous? The maid standing at the door looked horrified. She had rushed in behind her daughter, whispering apologies, trying to pull the girl away. But the girl stood firm. Her courage had created a ripple none of them could control. The lawyers quickly flipped through the pages again, their fingers pausing at the section she pointed out. Their expressions shifted, not yet admitting guilt, but unable to hide their discomfort. Meanwhile, the investors exchanged quick glances, their silence louder than any denial. If the girl was wrong, why not laugh and prove it immediately? Instead, they sat back, guarded, as though waiting to see how much she truly understood. The tension grew heavier with every passing second. The man felt the weight of the entire $500 million deal pressing on him. But now he wasn't only battling businessmen in suits. He was caught between truth, deception, and a child's desperate warning. And beneath it all lingered the question, who had set this Arabic trap, and how deep did the betrayal run? The conference room felt colder now, though the lights still glowed warmly above the long table. The man's hand gripped the pen tightly, not to sign, but as though he were holding on to control itself. Every eye was on him, some filled with doubt, others with quiet calculation. The girl stood frozen, her words still echoing in the air. She had no documents to prove her claim, only the truth she had overheard and the courage to speak it. The investors shifted uneasily. One leaned forward and finally spoke, his voice calm yet sharp, claiming the girl had misunderstood. He explained that the Arabic phrase was a simple legal formality, nothing more. But the way his tone faltered betrayed a crack in his confidence. The lawyers, who had been scanning the pages, now avoided eye contact, their silence feeding the growing suspicion. The man's mind raced. $500 million, years of work, endless negotiations, law balanced on this fragile moment. If he called off the signing, he risked everything: his reputation, his empire, the trust of countless partners. If he signed and the girl was right, he could lose far more than money. He could lose everything he had built. The maid whispered for her daughter to step back, but the girl refused. Her small voice rose again, firmer this time, as she repeated the hidden meaning. The investors stiffened, their polished composure beginning to crack. One tapped his fingers against the table too quickly. Another forced a smile that looked more like a mask. Outside the room, staff and guards lingered, sensing the storm behind the glass. Inside, time seemed to slow. The man finally pushed the papers away, demanding answers. The investors didn't move. Their silence was louder than any denial, and for the first time, their power seemed uncertain. Every heartbeat pulled the moment tighter until the deal, the truth. And everyone in that room were one step from breaking apart. The man's demand for answers hung in the air. But before anyone could respond, a knock echoed at the door. Everyone turned. A hotel staff member stepped inside nervously, holding a sealed envelope. He handed it directly to the man at the head of the table, whispering that it had just been delivered with urgent instructions. The timing felt uncanny, almost scripted, as though someone had known this very moment would come. The man hesitated, then broke the seal. Inside were several photocopied pages documents that didn't belong to his team. His eyes scanned quickly, and the blood drained from his face. The papers revealed not one, but multiple versions of the same contract. The version in front of him was not the same as the one his lawyers had originally approved. Somewhere along the process, the deal had been switched. The trap carefully disguised in the Arabic phrasing. Gasps spread across the table, but the investors remained still, their faces carefully blank. The lawyers now whispered frantically, trying to explain how such a switch could have slipped past them. But the man realized this wasn't negligence, it was infiltration. Someone close, someone inside his own circle, had been feeding the other side. The girl's warning suddenly carried even greater weight. She hadn't just exposed a phrase, she had uncovered a conspiracy. The room's energy shifted from uneasy silence to open suspicion. Eyes darted across the table, no longer just between sides, but within the man's own team. One of his most trusted advisors shifted in his chair, avoiding his gaze. The man noticed, his chest tightening with the sting of betrayal. The deal was no longer just a financial gamble. It was proof that someone had been working against him all along. Feeding the Arabic trap until the very last second, the stakes had escalated far beyond money. Trust had shattered, and the truth was closing in on them all.